Today we are going to continue with BPSC 145 that talks about democracy and development in Northeast India. So we are learning about Northeast Indian part of our country, and we are learning how democracy and development took place in that part of our country. So we are on Unit 7 that talks about migration, refugees, and citizenship. In today's class, we will be learning about how migration, refugee, and the citizenship issues. So, the issue of migrants has dominated the politics in Northeast India since 1930. So, it is from before the pre-independence time that this issue of migrants is bothering India. It continues to play a decisive role in the region's politics during the post-colonial period as well. That means not only it was only in pre-independence time, but it also played a very decisive role in the post-colonial period. So during the year of 1979 to 85, it was the central issue in the anti-foreign national movement in Assam. In the discourse on ethnic or ethno-nationalist politics in Northeast India, the migrants are often alluded to as outsiders by the indigenous communities. So the migrants who came from outside of Assam, they were known as, or outside of Northeast India, they were known as outsiders. And in terms of group identities, these migrants and indigenous communities broadly belong to different ethnic groups. So there is also ethnic diversity in these migrants. They belong to different ethnic communities. In tribal areas, the difference between the migrants and the indigenous communities are often manifested in the form of differences between the tribal and the non-tribal groups. So there is a difference between migrants and indigenous communities because a few of them are tribals and few are non-tribals. So the tribal areas in the northeast have often witnessed anti-outsider or anti-migrant movements resulting in violence. So there is a notion, there is a perception that in tribal areas of northeast, they are they are anti-outsiders or anti-migrants, and because of that issue, that crisis, it results in violence often. So migration has been an important issue. Where it is an important issue, the first is election campaigns, non-electoral mobilization, and popular discourse in different states of Northeast India, especially Assam, Mizoram, Tripura, and Meghalaya. So, the arrival of refugees from East Pakistan in the wake of the partition of the country, or later Bangladesh, and the question of citizenship in this century has also become, central to political mobilization in Northeast India. Now, let's talk about migration, refugee, citizenship. What does it means? So, in this part, we will be learning about the meanings of these words and migration. Starting from migration, it is a movement of people from one place to another for long or short duration settlement. So, when people move from one place to another, we say that it is a kind of migration. A refugee is a person who is forced to migrate to another country from his or her original habitat because of displacement. So, migrant are the persons who take decisions on their own. It is their decision to migrate from one place to another. But if we talk about refugee, they are forced to migrate due to some, conditions that happened in their original habitat. So the displacement can be due to because of status as an ethnic minority. Secondly is natural calamities. Next is state policies. Another example or another reason might be external aggression and social strife. So there are more reasons to it, but these are the major reasons why refugees became refugee and they are forced to migrate from their original habitat. So, citizens. Now, let's talk about citizens. Citizens are those natives of a country who are granted legal rights by the state. So, refugees are sometimes granted citizenship in the country of their migration, and sometimes they remain permanently refugees. So, citizenship can be acquired by birth, naturalization, or application. So when the migrants are accepted by the host, they are granted citizenship, which means they will be enjoying all the rights and entitlements that the original citizen have. So, the Citizenship Act of India 1955, while defining Indian citizenship, also defined illegal immigrants. So, the Citizenship Act of 1955 talks about illegal immigrants, and according to this act, an illegal immigrant is one who enters into India without a valid passport. Secondly, having other travel documents, like they without passport or other travel documents, or such other document or authority as may be prescribed by any other law. So the illegal migrants are also referred to as infiltrators. This is very important. Please note it down that illegal immigrants are also referred to as infiltrators. The host country can prosecute them, or they can be deported to another country of their region. Now let's talk in detail about migration, and specifically migration in the pre-independence period. So migration in Northeast India from other regions of undivided India began in the third decade of the 19th century. So migration is not new, it started in the 19th century also. So it happened following the occupation of territories that later constituted Assam. So this migration occurred with the patronage and encouragement of the Britishers, and they encouraged and patronized people from other regions to engage in various economic and administrative activities. So what are these activities? The first is tilling the land, then working in the tea plantations, doing unskilled labor, service in public institutions, army, trade, etc. So the colonial authorities realized that migration of peasants was necessary for cultivating the massive cultivated wasteland which they discovered at the time of occupation of Assam in 1824. So, in order to generate revenue by increasing agricultural productivity, they decided to cultivate the wasteland. So, for this purpose, the colonial authorities decide to populate Assam. So, this is how the migrants were encouraged by Britishers, and it is with migrants from neighboring Bengal districts and settle them in the wastelands of Assam. So there are many Bengalis also who lives in Assam because they were settled there in the wastelands of Assam. The colonial authorities also recruited indentured labor from other parts of the country to work in the tea plantation. So the focus was to grow the tea, plantation agriculture, and for that there were many labor that were transferred from one place to another. Besides, for farming land and tea plantation, there was migration to northeast of collar workers, artisans, traders, dairy farmers, merchants, and speculators, labor force working in the petroleum and coal industries of Assam. So, because of all these things, people were hired from other parts of the country and they were settled in Assam. So the migration of people from outside Assam was thus able to transform the demography of the province. And this recruitment continued till 1950s. Now, let's talk about migration in the post-independence period. So after the partition, the people who moved from other regions into Northeast can be categorized into three types. So what are these three types? The first type is migrants, next is refugees, and the third is illegal migrants. So as a refugee, by definition, refugee is a person who migrates from his or her country to another country. With East Bengal becoming a part of new country after partition of Pakistan, migrants came to be categorized as refugees. So apart from the refugees and illegal migrants from the neighboring countries such as East Pakistan or Myanmar, migration from other parts of India continued after independence. Laboring class, white collar workers, skilled and unskilled labor, force, managerial groups, entrepreneurs, businessmen, traders, and speculators migrated from other parts of India. So huge number of population was migrated into northeastern part. Let's talk about the sectors which attract migrants. So the first sector which attracts migrant is tea estates. Next is major oil refineries that was there in Guwahati, Digboy, and Bongaigaon. So these were the places where major oil refineries were established, and migrants were attracted to these places because it provides employment. Along with tea estates and refineries, there is also tertiary sectors which includes infrastructure need like the expansion of roads. Also, educational institutions in the states of Northeast India, such as central universities and other central government offices like railways, postal sector, banking sector, telephone sector, also attract migrants from middle class employees to Northeast India from other parts of the country. Now, let's talk about the conflict on the issue of migration. So, migration has often been perceived as detrimental to local or indigenous communities' economic interest and social and cultural identities. So, it is something which is perceived as detrimental to local. Why? Because they are coming in the life of the locals who already resides there. So this happens with a reference to both kinds of migration. So the migration from neighboring countries, especially Bangladesh, and there is also internal migration that is from other regions of India to the states of Northeast India. So there have been ethnic conflicts between the migrants and the indigenous population in the region. In the states with a substantial tribal population, the conflict relating to migration often become a conflict between tribals and non-tribals that we have already heard about in our previous slide, that there is a substantial tribal population in northeastern part of our country, and the conflict that relates to migration often becomes a conflict between tribals versus non-tribals. So the Assam movement, which was led by the All Assam Students Union, in short it is known as ASU, is the most important example of a movement against foreign nationals in northeast India. So, the detection of bogus voters during a by election in 1979 to Mangladai Lok Sabha constituency sparked off the anti foreign national movement. So, this was the point where people started this anti foreign national movement, and the reason became the bogus voters during the by election that happened in 1979 to Mangladoi Lok Sabha constituency. So it spread to other northeastern states, led to a series of violence. So this movement was not non-violent. There was incidents of violence in this, and it also included the Shillong riots, Nelly massacre, and the Mandai massacre. So all these were the part of the conflicts arise due to migrants. So the movement ended in 1985. Just imagine it started in 1979 and then it is ending in 1985. So this is almost 6 year long battle, 6 year long conflict that went on for so many days. So the movement ended in 1985 with the Assam Accord. So there was an accord that was signed and it was known as Assam Accord, which agreed to confer citizenship of India to immigrants who came to India up to 1971. So this was about Assam Accord, and it had a caveat that those who entered between 1961 to 71 would have to complete a term of 10 years before the conferment of citizenship. So there was a time period for 10 years for those who entered between 1961 to 71, and after living in India for 10 years only, they will be getting their citizenship. Now let's talk about refugees. The entry of refugees into Assam started after the partition of the country in 1947. Indeed, the people who were simply considered migrants into Assam from another part of British India in the pre-independence period came to be known as refugees after East Bengal became East Pakistan in 1947 and Bangladesh in 1971. So refugees by definition are people who are displaced migrants from countries. Partition of India and communal riots that accompanied it displaced many people, in East Pakistan. Influx of refugees took place following the Noah Khali riots in October 1946. So the largest number of the refugees came from Sylhet, followed by those from Mymensingh and Dhaka. So these are the districts of Bangladesh, nowadays Bangladesh. So the largest number of refugees came from Sylhet district, and after Sylhet, it was Mymensingh and Dhaka's population which became refugees in India. The number of refugees declined following the signing of the Nehru Liaquat Khan Pact on 8th of April 1950. So, the Nehru Liaquat Pact envisaged security, freedom, and protection of property of the minorities in both countries. However, the Nehru Liaquat Pact could not stop the process of movement of the refugees into Assam. So during the Bangladesh War of 1971 and 72, lakhs of refugees entered Assam and West Bengal. And while many of them returned to Bangladesh after the war, it is presumed that a chunk of this population did not go back and settled in these provinces. So in Tripura, the migration of Bengalis resulted in the demographic transformation of the state, and in all states of the region, there is resentment against the influx of refugees. Now let's talk about citizenship. How the citizenship emerged, the concept, the issue of citizenship emerged. The citizenship issue in Assam arose immediately after the commencement of the Indian Constitution in 1950. So, this citizenship issue was a very big issue because Indian Constitution got established in 1950, and it was an immediate task to be done because it was creating problems. And citizenship is very important to give a brief that who we can call a citizen. So there were complaints of continuation of illegal migration into Assam even after the partition. So there were many complaints that come in because after partition also the migration, illegal migration hasn't stopped, and people were migrating from days to days, and that was creating problem, and people were complaining about it. So the government of India took different measures after the partition to deal with this question of citizenship. So, what are these measures? Among these were the Foreigners Act 1948, the Foreigners Order 1948. Next is Immigrants Expulsion from Assam Act 1950. The Citizenship Act 1955 permits system. PIP, that is Prevention of Infiltration of Pakistanis Scheme 1965, the Foreigners Tribunal Order 1964, the Foreigners Tribunal Amendment Order 2012, the Passport Entry into India Act 1920, and the Citizenship, Registration of Citizen and Issue of National Identity Card Rules 2003, the Citizenship Rules 2009, Foreigner Tribunal and Illegal Migrants, that is a determinal tribunal, and also Illegal Migrants Determination Tribunal, IMDT Act 1983. So these were the measures that were taken by the government of India after the partition so that they can deal with the question of citizenship. So in 1951, the National Register of Citizens, that is NRC, was prepared to keep the record of genuine citizens of India in Assam. The Citizenship Act 1955, which envisaged the citizenship laws in India, was enacted 5 years after. So, therefore, under Article 11 of the Constitution, the Parliament passed the 1955 a comprehensive law so that they can deal with citizenship. So, the main objective of the Act is to provide for the attainment and termination of Indian citizenship. So the provisions of the Act may be broadly divided into three parts, that is, acquisition of citizenship, termination of citizenship, and supplemental provisions. So the Act provides modes of acquiring the citizenship of India. So what are these five modes? They are basically acquiring citizenship by birth, descent, registration, naturalization, and incorporation of territory. So this is five modes, um, so in through which we can acquire the citizenship in India. Citizenship became a dominant issue in Northeast India during the Assam movement that happened in the year 1979 to 1985. So, this dominant issue in Northeast India, it became popular during Assam movement, and as citizenship is about the right of individuals to reside and vote, own, inherit, and transfer property, etc., the detection and deportation of foreign nationals from Assam are related to the question of citizenship. So the leaders and supporters of the Assam movement argued that their citizenship rights were adversely affected because the illegal migrants or the non citizens had encroached upon their rights. So, how they encroached upon their rights, and first is usurp their land, economic opportunities, and they got themselves illegally included in the voters list. So this is how the rights of the non-citizens, that is illegal migrants, are encroaching the rights of the citizens. Now let's talk about the NRC and CAA 2019. So both NRC, that is National Register of Citizenship, and Citizenship Amendment Act 1919, CAA 2019, are about citizenship. As mentioned earlier, the NRC was first prepared in 1951, and the Parliament passed the Citizenship Amendment Act 2019 to amend the Citizenship Amendment Act that happened in 1955. So the CAA proposes to grant citizenship to persecuted religious minorities, Hindus, Sikhs, Buddhists, Jains, or Christians from Afghanistan, Bangladesh, and Pakistan. The NRC is a contemporaneous register prepared by the officers appointed under the provisions of the Census Act in the course of census operations. So, in the year 2005, the first proposal to upgrade the NRC of 1951 was made in a tripartite meeting between the ASU, Assam government, and the central government. So, its immediate context was the tripartite meeting of the Supreme Court's verdict, which declared the IMDT Act 2013 null and void. The court verdict was on a petition filed by Sarban and Sonowal to challenge the IMDT Act. Subsequent meetings were held to discuss the citizenship issue in 2011 and 2013 by the then Assam Chief Minister Tarun Gogoi to update the NRC. But the process of updating of NRC by the Gogoi government in 2012 was halted following the protest in Dhubri and Goalpara and riots between the Muslims and the Bodo tribals in Bodoland areas in the year 2012 and 2014. The CAA 2019 was opposed by all the states of Northeast India as they feared that the act would grant citizenship to refugees whom they seek to expel from their territory. So, in other parts of the country, it was opposed on the ground that excluding Muslims, it was violating the secular spirit of Indian constitution. The CAA 2019 is among the latest of such attempts, and the Government of India took several measures on the question of citizenship after independence. So, with this, we are over with our Unit 7 about refugees, migrants, and citizenship. Now, let's move forward to Unit 8, that is about autonomy movements. So, this chapter is also very, very important along with the previous chapter. And there are many parts of this chapter that is very a burning issue, related to that, because in the part which we are reading, particularly the northeastern region. So let's introduce. Autonomy movements are among the most important themes of political, academic, and popular discourse on Northeast India. Derived from the Greek word auto, meaning self, and nomo, meaning law or rule, autonomy means self rule or to make one's own law. So please remember this that it derived from the Greek words auto, meaning self, and nomo, meaning law or rule. So together, this autonomy means self rule or to make one's own law. Therefore, it has the connotation of being free to govern oneself. It also means that one is independent to decide whether one wishes to be influenced or controlled by others or be free and rule oneself. From the political and legal aspect, autonomy connotes the ability of people to govern them or have the power to legislate to regulate their affairs. So, do remember that from political and legal aspect, autonomy connotes the ability of people to govern them or have the power to legislate to regulate their affairs. Autonomy movements are the collective mobilization of people or groups that seek autonomy. Various ethnic groups in different states in Northeast India have been seeking reorganization of federal structure. Now let's move on to the features of autonomy movements. So, what are the features of autonomy movement? Autonomy movements have some features, and autonomy movements arise when a group of people in a certain region feel that their region has not received proper treatment or is discriminated against by the authorities, the government of or other regions. Such people may share some common features such as region, culture, language, customs, history, etc. See, autonomy movements aim to give expression to distinct cultural linguistic identities and to uplift the backward socio-economic conditions of people in an area. Such movements are organized and led by political or social leaders, students, middle classes, or civil society organizations. These are opinion makers who make people conscious of their grievances, articulate their interest, and mobilize people into collective actions or social movements. So, the opinion makers basically, generally, they argue that outsiders exploit their economic sources. So, they are not paid royalties in proportion to usage of their resources. Sometimes they also allege that their regions have become internal colonies of other regions or governments. So, they also allege that due to improper policies pertaining to migration and development, their culture, that is, language, social, and cultural identities, are adversely impacted. So, they complain that they do not get adequate representation in the existing setup, political institutions, and their opinions are not considered in policy formulation. Some of them argue that regions or communities have been nations since time immemorial, and they have lost political sovereignty in the existing federal structure. The opinion makers in such regions argue that their grievances can be solved if they are political autonomy to manage and regulate their affairs. So, autonomy movements in Northeast India share these features in different degrees. So, autonomy movements in Northeast India occurred in different forms of in the post-independence period. So, what are these different forms? The first is demand for sovereign states, formation of new states or union territories, creation of autonomous councils or state within states. On several occasions, the collective mobilization for such demands has led to ethnic violence or insurgency. On some occasions, it has resulted in the acceptance of some demands or the signing of accords. However, Such demands arise from time to time. Either the old demands get revived or new demands for autonomy are raised. So the demands for autonomy and sovereignty are different but sometimes interrelated. How it is interrelated? The first is autonomy is about the rearrangement of federal structure within a sovereign state. The insurgency is about getting a sovereign state. They are interrelated in the sense that a demand might be raised for autonomy, but it might turn into a demand for a sovereign state. Or initially, a demand which may be about granting a sovereign state might be changed into a demand for autonomy in a different political context. So, this is about the autonomy movements in Northeast India. Let's talk about insurgencies. So, insurgency is associated with organized assistance that supports all or some sections of society to challenge the state and the change the political regime. So, there are examples of insurgency in Northeast India. Duration, number, and intensity of cases of insurgency in the region have varied, and Manipur has had the largest numbers of insurgent groups in the region. So we can see that it is insurgency which is associated with organized assistance that supports all or some sections of the society to challenge the state, and they aim to change the political regime. So there are also examples of insurgency in Northeast India. That is, duration, number, and intensity of cases of insurgency in the regions have varied. So Manipur has had the largest number of insurgent groups. Please note it down. Manipur has had the largest numbers of insurgent groups in the region. Nagaland, Mizoram, and Manipur have seen more sustained insurgencies than in Assam or Meghalaya. In Assam, the United Liberation Front Assam, that is ULFA in short, has been active since the 1980s. In Meghalaya, the Haini Trip National Liberation Council HNLC has been active since the 1990s. Insurgency in Nagaland is the first example of autonomy movement in Northeast India. Please note it down that the insurgency which arose in Nagaland is the first example of autonomy movement in Northeast India. Nagaland was the first where the autonomy movement started. Demand. The notion of Naga autonomy or self-determination originated with the formation of Naga Club in the year 1990. The NNC argued that the Nagas had been a nation since time immemorial. Only some regions in Naga Hills became part of the British Empire after the latter annexed those areas from the 19th century. They argued that after the British left, the Naga nation was not part of any other nation because the Naga had a unique history. In June 1947, an agreement was signed between the Naga leadership and the governor of Assam, that is Akbar Haidari, known as the 9-point agreement. The agreement was agreed that 10 years after the agreement, the Nagas will be free to decide their future. So, this was written in their agreement. The NNC launched a movement under Angami Zapo Fizo's leadership to establish a sovereign state of Nagaland. So, who was the leader in this movement, this autonomy movement of Nagaland? It was Angami Zapo Fizo, who was the leader under this, wanted to establish a sovereign state of Nagaland. As India was to celebrate independence, disregarding the 9-point agreement, the NNC declared that independence on August 14, 1947, a day before India celebrated its freedom. So, India celebrated independence on 15th of August 1947, and disregarding this 9-point agreement, the NNC declared declared their independence on 14th of August 1947. It refused to be part of the Indian Union because how they refused to be part of Indian Union? They rejected its constitution and flag. They refused to accept the sixth schedule, and they boycotted the first general election that happened in the year 1951 to 52. In 1951, the NNC conducted a plebiscite in the Naga Hills district and declared that 99% of the Nagas voted for independence and appealed to the Indian government to respect the people's verdict and grant independence. In the year 1956, the Naga insurgent group formed what they called the Federal Government of Nagaland, FGN, and they initiated insurrection to carry out a struggle for what they considered independence. The government of India responded by enacting various acts. So, what are these acts? Assam Maintenance of Public Order, Autonomous District Act 1953, the Assam Disturbed Areas Act 1955, the Armed Forces Special Power Acts AFSPA in 1958. This resulted in violence between the forces and the Nagas. Mizoram witnessed insurgencies between 1960 and 1986. It started with the formation of the Mizo National Famine Front in 1916. It ended the following the signing of the Mizo Accord in 1986 between the MNF leader Lal Denga and the government. In February 1987, Lal Denga became the first chief minister with the elevation of Mizoram to the level of state from an union territory. The reason for the formation of MNFF was the realization on the part of Mizo leaders that both the central and the state government of Assam did not address their grievances caused due to the bamboo famine, the Motam of 1957 to 59. The MNFF believed that the and central and state governments could not address Mizo's problems, and they would be resolved only if they had their own sovereign state. For meeting the purpose, the Mizo, under the leadership of Lal Denga, started insurgency. After the famine ended, the MNFF was converted into a party MNF in 1960. The MNF started a movement for the formation of a sovereign state of Mizoram, leading to violence between the Mizos and security forces. The Mizo insurgency saw a decline